Yeah, hello everyone, welcome back. So in previous lecture, we discussed about at the rate join column. What is the purpose? We need to add at the rate join column, right? So I will just summarize that. So the join column, why we need to use this join column? So whenever you are trying to map your foreign key relationship with passport, that time if you don't specify at the rate join column, so what Hibernate will look for? So Hibernate will always look for foreign key in employee table as a passport underscore id if you don't specify any at the rate column here. So if you specify at the rate column and specify any column name like a column and name is equal, if you specify any your own column, whatever column name if you specify here, so then Hibernate will look for own underscore passport underscore own underscore column name. Hibernate will always look for the column in employee table to insert the primary key of passport. It will always look for passport id underscore own underscore column. So it is like that. It will passport underscore own underscore column. It will always create like that. So if you don't specify, it will look for passport underscore id column in employee table. So if you specify at the rate if you specify at the rate column in your passport table, so whenever you are using join column name in your employee entity, so that time you have to give this name as a, so reference name should give as this column name. Whatever column name you have specified, this column name you have to give as a reference column name to specify your custom column name. So hopefully you understood the concept, right? So for the timing, I'm not giving this column name. So I think everyone is understood, right? What is the purpose of it, the red join column? So now, so for example, whenever there is a already database table is created, that time while creating database table, whatever foreign key column name that you have given in database, okay, so that time what will happen? So you have to specify the join column name to look for that foreign key column in employee table. So that time you have to specify whatever column you have given in database. So I hopefully you got the point. And now in this lecture we are going to explain, I am going to discuss about bidirectional mapping, one to one bidirectional mapping. So far we have discussed about one to one unidirectional mapping, right? So what is the purpose of unidirectional mapping? So what is the unidirectional mapping? So one employee can associated with one passport, but in reverse way, passport also can associated with employee. So this is we have not implemented. We have implemented only one direction. Currently, as of now, employee only can associated with passport. So this is unidirectional mapping. So now I want to create a relationship between passport and employee as a bidirectional mapping. So let me implement that. So how we, before implementing that, so what is the purpose I am going to what is the purpose? You should know the purpose. What is the purpose we are going to implement the bidirectional mapping? The purpose here is, so if you want to fetch passport details along, so earlier we have implemented so employees associated with passport. So whenever you are trying to fetch employee, you can get the passport details also. But so whenever you are trying to fetch the passport details, so you cannot get the employee because we haven't implemented it. So if you check it here in employee, currently employee is only having owning the relationship, employee entity only owning the relationship, and it has passport property. So whenever you are trying to fetch the employee details along with the employee, you are going to get passport details as well. But now currently, so if you try to fetch the passport details, so there is no association to specify your respective employee with respective passport. So if you try to fetch the passport details, you always get the passport details only, so you will not get the employee information. So that's the reason. So passport also can associate it with employee. So for that purpose, we need to implement bidirectional mapping. So before that, first I will show you what is the purpose we need to implement bidirectional mapping. So let me, if you have explain you already server is in starting mode, right? So let me open the console, so rest line, and then let me send the request to get the employee details. No such element exception, because as of now in database we don't have any data in database. That's the reason we are not getting any data. So let me insert employee details. Create employee, and what is the HTTP request method should be post. So I'm trying to insert Virat Kohli. We can see successfully inserted the record. So just refresh the no, so just refresh the table, so you can see one table is inserted. And what is the column name which I have given for passport underscore, you can see passport underscore FK, because I have given it as a column name as here join column passport underscore FK. That's the reason passport primary key is in this column passport primary key is inserted. So for this is a foreign key, right? So now data is inserted, employee also, passport also. But when you are trying to fetch the employee, you will also get passport details, right? Find employee. Now I'm trying to fetch the employee. Why not found? Oh, URI is incorrect, so let me give proper URI. Send the request. You can see we got the successful response. Whenever you are trying to fetch the employee, along with the employee details, you are getting passport details as well. So in the current scenario, if you want to fetch the passport details, so I haven't written the API, right, to fetch the passport detail. We'll see what will happen if I fetch the passport details. If I write the password, if I invoke find passport API, so you will always get passport details only, so you will not get employee details. So let me show you first, then we'll implement bidirectional mapping, one-to-one mapping. Okay, so for that let me create find passport method. So for the time being, I am writing a find passport method in employee service only. So in real-time environment, generally passport should have a separate passport service class. Okay, so but as of now I am implementing here itself. So separate interface you have to create for passport, and separate controller you have to create for passport. So generally in real-time environment, because each independent module should be unique. So now employee is associated with passport, right? So you can write here also. Some people will write in the same service, some people may write they will create a passport service separately, so depends on their requirement. We can write. So as of now I'm going to create to fetch the passport details, I'm going to create in employee service interface only. So to fetch the passport details, so we need to return passport details, then find passport. So to fetch the passport, we need a primary key of passport ID. That's it. So this one you have to implement it in service layer. So you are getting error here, right? So you just need to select here, put it here, then add implemented methods, unimplemented methods. So that's it. It's added successfully. So to find the passport, we need a JPA repository. With JPA repository, passport JPA repository. We have already passport JPA repository. With this object I am going to fetch the passport details. Now get by id, and I am passing passport id. Let me check get by id is let me check find by is there, so use find by id. Get by id is already outdated, so now here find by id and dot get. So this should not be toString dot get. So that's it. So get by id earlier that is outdated actually, so this is latest one. So find by id of id dot get, so you will get the passport information. Now we need to call this method in your controller, employee rest controller. We have to create the api to find the passport details. So for control shift o to find the resource employee rest controller. So here I want to write to find passport details. Let me write control v. Let me stop the server. So find, instead of find employee, find passport. So I'm passing passport id. So to differentiate, so find the passport id, right? So now here I will give find passport. Currently I'm writing find passport api in employee controller only. Okay, find passport. So now we have to call employee service dot, instead of find employee by id, we have to call find passport. So find passport, I have written it as a find passport, right? So that's why I'm giving it as a find passport. So we are calling that method find passport, and then it should return which dto generally. So employee dto, because currently we are what I am trying to return directly entity. In a previous lecture I told you, right? So we should not use entities to send response back, so we have to use dtos. So let me create return type should be dto. We should not return entities as a response, right? We have to give, we have to send response back as a dtos. So let me give passport dto. Return type should be dto. In previous lecture you can understand what is the purpose. I am not returning entity as a response. We should give dto as a response, so we have to return dto as a response. Okay, so now same thing we have to implement in service layer. Instead of returning entity, I should return dto. So now this is returning entity, right? So what we can do, we know, right, how we can, we have to convert entity to dto. How we can convert entity to dto? Passport is equals, currently it will return passports. So how we can convert entity to dto? By using model mapper dot map. So you just need to pass passport, and second argument should be your passport dto. That's just import it, passport dto, organize the imports, then passport dto dot class. So this will return passport dto, right? So you can just return this directly. That's it. So now, so instead of returning like this, directly you can return. So because this object we are not using anywhere, right? So what you can do, you can directly return this as well. So we no need to specify a variable and return it. Okay, so organize the code, control shift f to organize the code properly. So now this method we are calling in controller So now this should return find by passport should return employee, not employee DTO. It should be passport DTO. That's it. So this passport DTO you have to pass here, and then you have to return passport DTO. If you practice, then only you can understand everything, guys. This is very simple. This is not rocket science. Very easy. If you practice everyday's class, you can easily understand. Okay. So now, before implementing bidirectional mapping, let me invoke passport details API. So now go to our REST client. So before that, let me fetch the employee details. So if you, okay, I need to start the server, right? Earlier we have stopped the server. So let me start the server. Server started successfully. Now I just want to fetch employee details first. So because employee is associated with passports, that's the reason along with the employee we are able to get the passport details. Now if you fetch find passport API /1. So let me check in database. What is the primary key of passport? So one only. So if you fetch the passport details, see you always will get the passport information only, but using this passport number you cannot get the employees. You cannot sorry, this passport is not associated with employee. So whenever in unidirectional mapping, whenever you are trying to fetch the employee details along with the employee, you are getting passport details. But whenever you are trying to fetch the passport, that time you are always getting passport details only. So using this API you cannot get employee details along with the specific passport. So now if you have a requirement, I want to get uh, employee details along with passport. So that time whenever you are invoking passport API, along with the passport API I want to fetch employee details as well. That time you have to implement bidirectional mapping, or you have to declare passport as a owner and employee as a non-ownership. So like that, yeah, two ways we can implement. So now here I am implementing bidirectional mode. So whenever you are fetching employee details, if you want to fetch employee, sorry, if you want to fetch passport details along with employee details, then you have to implement bidirectional mapping. How we can do that? Just you need to add. So before that, let me stop the server. I want to explain you one thing. So I stopped the server. So if you want to access employee information along with the passport while invoking passport API, so we have to declare a property in passport entity. What is the property? Employee private. How we have declared in employee? In employee, we have declared to fetch the passport details along with the employee. We have declared it as a passport in employee entity. Similarly, if you want to fetch employee details along with the passport, so that time you have to declare employee entity, employee property in passport entity. So private employee employee. So I just declare the property. So now you just need to specify getters and setter methods. Source, generate, select all. So the moment you declare property in entity, so it will not maintain the relationship. So if you want to fetch employee details along with the passport, what we have to do? So earlier in employee, to fetch passport information along with the employee to maintain one-to-one relationship, I just declared at the rate one-to-one, right, initially. So similarly, if you want to fetch passport details along with employee, that time you have to maintain the relationship one to one. So same logic, so just you have to specify at the rate one to one. The moment you declare at the rate one to one, so then passport also will associated relationship with employee table. You got it right, passport also will associate the relationship with employee as well. So this case what will happen, so now let me start the server. Before starting the server, you can see earlier we have implemented a unidirectional mapping. In unidirectional mapping, so employee entity is having passport property, so that's the reason in employee table we have foreign key is created, passport primary key created as a foreign key in employee table. Similarly, now I have created in passport entity, I have created property of employee. So now what should happen when the moment I start the server, Hibernate should generate alter that passport table, and Hibernate will add primary key foreign key relationship with employee, right? So Hibernate will generate a foreign key relationship with employee table in passport table, right? So now passport doesn't have any employee table primary key foreign key, right? So now if I start the server, see what will happen now. You can see the moment I declared employee property inside the passport entity, so the moment I declare at the rate 121 annotation, so Hibernate is created foreign key of uh, employee ID in passport table. You can see it is altered passport table. Go to your database. So before refreshing, so earlier in passport table only we have ID and number. If I refresh now, you can see there is a new column is added into passport table. So because now our passport entity is associated, passport entity is maintaining relationship with employee table. Our passport, what is that meaning? So now passport also can have associated with employee table, that is the meaning. But this is also bidirectional mapping, but only thing is that this case what will happen, let me refresh. So employee table is having foreign key of foreign employee table is having primary key of passport table as a foreign key. Similarly passport table is having, let me refresh the object repository so that you can see updated column. So employee table is having foreign passport foreign key, and passport table is having employee foreign key. So both are having vice versa. So employee can access passport data, and passport also can access employee data, because employee is maintaining relationship with passport, and similarly passport also maintaining relationship with employee. This is called bidirectional mapping, but this is not best way to implement bidirectional mapping, because we are in this scenario we are duplicating the data. Why? Because so let's say employee is having employee number 1, and passport foreign passport primary key is having 1. If you go to passport table, so whenever you are trying to insert, so passport table also will have passport primary key, and along with that passport table will have for primary key of employee. So I just selected, so I have not inserted manually I have selected primary key of employee, just save it. See, so what will happen in that case, so employee also having ID 1, employee ID, and passport primary key of 1 it has. Similarly in passport table also we have one passport ID, and one as a employee ID. So what does that mean? We are maintaining duplicate data in both the tables. this case what will happen? So in that case, employee also owning the relationship with passport. Similarly, passport also owning the relationship with employees. Both are owners in this case. So whenever both are owners together, is called, we are duplicating the data in database, because you can see in employee we have employee ID 1 and passport ID 1. Similarly, in passport table also we will have passport ID 1 and employee ID 1. So we are maintaining duplicate data in both the places. So both the table is having employee and passport details. Employee table also having passport and employee details. Similarly, passport table also is having employee and passport details. So it is duplicating the data in both the tables. So to avoid, this is not the best way to implement bidirectional mapping. This is also bidirectional mapping, but this is not the best way because we are duplicating the data in both the places. So to avoid this duplication, what we have to do, we have to declare whether employee as a owner or whether passport entity as a owner. Either employee, either passport, we have to declare any one entity as a owning the relationship, not both the tables, right? So now, as of now, employee also owner of the passport, and here in passport entity, passport also owner of employee. So passport also associated with one-to-one relationship with employee, and employee also maintaining relationship with passport. So in this case we are duplicating the data. So without implement to avoid duplication, we have to maintain whether declare employee as a owner, or you have to declare passport as a owner. So as of now I am declaring employee as a owner. I want to declare passport as a non-owner entity. So how we can declare as a non-owner entity? By specifying one-to-one annotation is having attribute called mapped by. So here I will give the property mapped by. So what we have to give? So passport also should map with employee, right? So we should not duplicate the data. So mapped by the property which we have given in passport, this is the one. So this is the value you have to give in passport entity as a mapped by attribute. That's it. Now what is happening? Now passport is not the owner of employee. Passport is not owner of one-to-one relationship. Passport is a entity, is a non-owning relationship. So he passport here, passport is just mapping the details of passport in employee table. So now duplicate data will not replicate. So employee only always have a employee details and passport details, but pass in this case, sorry, employee entity only will have employee table, employee details as well as passport details, but in passport table will have only passport information. So this case, that is the reason we have to declare it mapped by attribute. You can see here map of attribute, this element is only specified on the inverse non-owning side. Non-owning side in the sense, so passport is not owning the one-to-one relationship. Only who is owning the relationship? One-to-one relationship owning by only employee entity. So this time what will happen? Let me stop the server, and so let me remove the database, because here we have duplicate. So employee also having passport and passport also having employee. So now let me remove the database. So if you refresh, table is deleted successfully. So let me create a new database. You have to understand in-depth logic, guys. Don't blindly remember one-to-one directional unidirectional mapping. If you understand the concept, then you can leave, you no need to by heart the code. Okay, so now employee DB doesn't have any table. So now what I am doing here, so I made employee entity as a owner of the one-to-one relationship, because employee is having one-to-one relationship, and it is having join column with foreign key relationship with passport. But in passport table is not having foreign key relationship with employee. It is just having, this is non-owning entity, because I have specified as a mapped by. So a passport table doesn't have employee primary key. It is just mapping passport details with employee table. We are just redirecting results with employee table. Whenever you are trying to fetch the passport information, along with passport information you will get employee details as well. So this is how you can specify one-to-one bidirectional mapping. Okay, so now let me start the server. See, the moment you start the server, so employee table is created, passport table is created, but foreign key is created in employee table, not in passport table. If you open and check database, just refresh object browser and then check. See, employee table is having foreign key, primary key of passport as a foreign key. So employee is owning the relationship with passport. If you check in passport, passport is a non-owning side, because passport is not having employee primary key, because passport is a non-owning side relationship, right? So you can see how we have declared a non-owner of entity by specifying mapped by attribute. So whenever you declared mapped by attribute, that means you can directly tell passport is not owning the relationship. Who is owning the relationship? Employee is owning the relationship with passport, and passport is not owning the relationship with employee. Only passport is having mapped by with passport. So whenever you are trying to fetch the passport, so you will get, along with the passport you will get employee details as well. So this is called bidirectional mapping. So let me try to fetch the so before that we need to create the employee, right? So because I have refreshed the data, so now passport doesn't have any data and employee also doesn't have any data. So let me create the employee details. Create employee, it should be post request and send the request. So there is an employee is created, Virat Kohli. So if you go and refresh the database, there is a employee details is stored in employee table, and there is a mapping relationship with passport. Similarly, passport is also having data. So now earlier when we are trying to fetch the passport details, we are fetching only passport details. Now we have declared as a bidirectional mapping. Now find passport, if you invoke find passport with the help of get request API, earlier we got only passport details. Now if you fetch passport details, along with the passport details you should get employee details also. Why you are not getting employee details? So let me check. Fetch, you are getting passport details only. So why, let me check. So employee declared mapped by, so go to employee entity, so passport, go to API, employee rest controller. So here let me find passport. So it went to the passport, it's trying to fetch the passport details. Passport should have, but let me put breakpoint. So let me stop the, you can debug it why details are not coming. Just stop the server. I just want to debug. Yeah, because yeah, I know I got the point. So why we did not get the passport details? You see here, find the passport. This passport DTO should have employee details, right? I haven't had added the property here, so that's the reason we are not getting employee details. So earlier our employee DTO is having passport DTO to fetch the passport information along with employee details. Similarly, in passport DTO also we have to declare employee property to fetch employee information along with passport details. So let me create private employee DTO and then employee DTO. That's it. Now we just need to generate setters and getters. So earlier to get the passport details in employee DTO we have declared passport DTO as well. Similarly, when we are trying to fetch passport details along with that, if you want to fetch the employee details along with the passport details, you have to specify. So I will declare it as a employee only. Why? Because I will tell you later. Employee as a an object. So let me generate getters and setters method. Source generate getters and setter methods. That's it. So now go to your REST client and send the request to fetch the passport detail. So I put the breakpoint. That's the reason breakpoint came. I just want to skip that breakpoint. Click. See here we are getting serialization exception because Jackson mapping. This should be lazy operation. We have to perform lazy operation. So not only lazy operation. See here we are returning passport detail. We are mapping passport details to entity to find the passport. This passport we are converting it as a passport DTO. So inside the passport DTO we have a ID, number and employee. So employee DTO and get employee and set employee. So we are getting exception. What is the exception? Let's see. Let's read the error properly. So in the console, I will just send the request. See breakpoint came function F6. So it will go to here. Now let me check. See passport details should have employee. You can see. So whenever we are fetching pass, we have employee details also. You see, we got the employee details as well as we got the passport details also. But only problem here is while trying to map uh, entity to DTO. So that time we are getting the error. So now see function F6. Now here response entity we are taking it as a passport DTO function F6 when it is trying to convert. So what is the passport DTO of properties? Employee and ID and number. So both the employee details also there, passport details also there. But in passport DTO we have employee and ID and number. Similarly here we have employee ID number. It should map actually passport DTO function, execute it. So my battery is getting down. Let me connect charger. So yeah, connected the charger. So now you can see, so when we are trying to fetch the employees, let me put the breakpoint. I already put the breakpoint, send the request. So I haven't put the breakpoint, so let me enable the breakpoint in employee service IMPL. So let me, yeah, here employee MPL. So let me put the breakpoint, enable the breakpoint. So I will show you. So it's already whenever we are trying to fetch the passport, you can see in service IMPL, the moment you execute function F6, you can see passport details are able to fetch employee details as well as passport detail. You can see it's already fetching. Passport details are already fetching, but when we are getting the error, let me put function effects. After that you will go to the controller. So here it went to the to convert sorry, to return response back to the passport. So inside the passport DTO we have employee, right? So again it will go to the employee function F8. So it will come to the, I put the breakpoint in employee entity, so it is came to employee DTO. Again employee is having passport DTO, so both together it is trying to infinite loop function F8. See, function F8, it is coming back to you can see it is coming back to employee, then function F8, it is coming back to the passport, employee passport, function F8, function F8, function F8, function F8. There is a infinite loop is given, so that is the reason we got the exception. So this case what we have to do, let me disable here. We have to ignore the, so whenever it is trying to send response back to passport details. So from the passport we are going to the, again it is trying to go to the employee DTO. So in employee DTO we have to uh, sorry, in employee DTO this get passport, so this one we have to disable it, ignore it. It is trying how we can ignore, by specifying at the rate annotation. I'm not able to type at the rate now, so how we can do at the rate. You got the point, right? It is going infinite loop. So what we can do, at the rate ignore JSON ignore property. That's it. So what will happen now? It will not go to the infinite loop. So let me send the request. See, now along with the passport details we are able to get the employee details as well. So now what we have implemented, so now employee also can associated with passport, but this is a passport entity is a non-owning site, but still we are able to get the employee information along with passport detail. This is called bidirectional mapping. How we can implement bidirectional mapping, by specifying at the rate 1 to 1, and it should have mapped by attribute. The moment we declare it as mapped by attribute, passport is not a owning site. Passport is a non-owning site relationship. So 1 to 1 is all 1 to 1 relationship always maintained by employee entity. So that's it. Battery is down, power is cut in my place. So, okay guys, so this is how we can implement bidirectional mapping in 1 to 1 relationship. So in next lecture you have to understand the concept, guy. Whenever you are facing some issue, you have to put breakpoint and you have to identify the issue. Okay, so now we have implemented employee also can associate it with passport, and passport also can associate with employee. So we have completed 1 to 1 unidirectional mapping and bidirectional mapping. So in next lecture we will start with next association mapping. Okay, thank you guys. So who are all watching newly, so you can subscribe my channel youtube.com/Rasul Sheikh. So by invoking this URL you can subscribe my channel, you can watch all the videos. I have a playlist added, so if you subscribe, so every day you will get latest updates, so that you can learn Spring Boot, JPA, microservices, Angular JS, everything. Okay, so without paying any single rupee for new users. Okay, thank you so much guys.